Welcome everybody to our session with Doherty Family College. I am honored today to share with you Katia and Xavier, two people whom I have come to know recently and have, in Alex terms, fallen wildly in love with. Xavier, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And Katia, thank you so much for bringing your perspective and leadership to this subject as well. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex, and we are going to enjoy the next 25 minutes getting to know you, getting to set the stage for Caregiver, and bringing a whole new perspective to this subject. Alex.
Yeah. I would just add, I think Jodi and I have been selfish in our preparation for this because we keep making you guys get back on the phone and talk to us more. Not because you're not incredibly clear, but because we are so hungry to learn anything and everything from you, because you guys do have so much to share. So Jodi, thank you so much for making this possible, because these are amazing humans that you found that we can all share. And so thank you. So Xavier, you're off the hook for a second, because I'm going to start by torturing our beloved Katia, and then I'll come back to you. Don't think you're off the hook. So Katia, I want to start with you in your role as a persistence counselor. That is not a term that I had ever heard before. Can you share just quickly, what is that?
So a college persistence counselor in the higher ed setting typically is there to support students as they're trying to finish their four-year degree, and a lot of the challenges that they face, whether that's just like navigating the structures of the higher ed institutions or helping them problem solve how to deal with obstacles in their personal life or financial life. So my role is really just to ensure that I am a resource to students. And I kind of alleviate a little bit of the burden that they may face, because a lot of the students are not just in school, but they're also balancing family obligations, work obligations, school, and so much more. So, yeah.
One of the things you shared actually was how some of your clients, or your students, but I'm going to call them clients, don't really need anything, and some need a lot. And Xavier is probably an incredible example of somebody who was so far on the end of the spectrum of technically not needing a lot. So Xavier, you're 25, which makes you the very front line of Gen Z. I did a little research on this and had some fun. But you're really sort of on the cusp of being a millennial. I think if we were looking at like your astrological sign, like astrologically, you're sort of Gen Z and a millennial. You took, correct me if any of this is wrong, you took a 4-year gap after high school, but you're now going into your senior year at college at DFC. You're studying environmental science with a minor in geology, and you got here after working, you got to DFC after working through some financial aid issues, and you really had a quick stint in real estate, but found your way back to school, which is so lucky for all of us. And we're gonna have a fight after this on who gets to hire you. Jodi and I, dibs. You are so many things. So I think one of them is an extreme example in some of the stories you told us of the impact that COVID is having really across the country, but also specifically on Gen Z. And it's an impact that I think a lot of folks might not be aware of. Can you just walk us through, you're in school, you're humming along, COVID hits, what happened?
So prior to COVID, I was, just doing my work at school. I would get a lot of stuff done and then go home and help out at home, wherever that may be after school that day. And I had my mom set up with a program at her school because she's taking classes that could help her, gives her extra time on tests, and she has access to tutoring and stuff. That way I wouldn't have to be spending my school time helping her as well. And then once COVID hit, so all my classes went online, but as did my mom's and my little brother and sister. They're 11 and 12. And then my little cousin who's in first grade. And so yeah, they were all doing online school as well, and they had to go through the same adjustment. For me, I thought online school would be like really easy, just because I could knock everything out, and it's just hop on a Zoom call for an hour or so for a class, and then do it again for the next one and get your homework done. But what it ended up being was hopping on the Zoom call for the class, and then once that was over, I'd be helping my little cousin with his classwork, or my little siblings with theirs. or even my mom, she didn't have a physical contact with the tutor at all, so that would have to be over Zoom, which she was struggling with. Just having someone, I don't know, just over a screen helping her. And so
And just quickly, so everybody knows, your mom is going to school for?
she's going to school to be a nurse. She's currently a nurse assistant.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, so English is her second language, and she also has some other struggles with like learning. And so with like time limits on a computer test and things, she was struggling with taking her time reading things, and so she just needed me in the room. And so that, along with my little cousins and siblings, it took a lot of time.
Well, it's interesting because one of the things you shared is that in the olden days, BC, before COVID, you'd do your classes at school and then you'd get all your homework done. So that when you got home, because of these other roles you played, you could then focus on this other job that you had. And then when that all changed, I think, Jodi, the story you first told us, you heard about Xavier like 3 a.m. in the laundry room.
Right. The idea that you transition from being on campus in this, wherever you might be in a study room, to if it's 3 in the morning in the laundry room with your computer trying to get your homework done, talk about a different environment, right?
So
Yeah.
the theme, obviously, what we're talking about today is being a caregiver. And anyone who's watching this right now is already feeling the caregiver role pouring off of you. But were you familiar with that term before we came to harass you? Had you ever heard of it before?
No, I've heard of caregiver I guess my mom would be a caregiver in my eyes because she's a nursing assistant.
Yeah.
That's how I saw caregivers were like PCAs or nurses or doctors, things like that. And I don't know, I kind of saw myself as a helper, but not really a caregiver.
My caregiver, yeah. So you've given a couple examples, but can you run through now, list all the ways in which you are a caregiver with this broader definition now, the role that you now understand that it is?
Yeah, like pre-COVID or overall or during?
Overall. Before, okay. During, now.
Well, after high school, when I was taking that 4-year gap, I was kind of like a financial support for my family. I was working at Comcast for a little while, and most of my money went towards like helping out with bills and stuff so that we wouldn't lose the house, or we can pay off credit card debt and stuff like that. And then I was also like the primary like babysitter for my little siblings, and pretty much for any child in the family. I'm really good with kids, and so a lot of people come to me when they need childcare, and that's still the case during COVID. All of my family were essential workers. My little brother, older brother, my mom, my aunt, my stepdad, and so all of the kids were kind of just with me, and so that was kind of tough, but I enjoyed it. It was nice spending time with them. I also just support people with their schooling. I was technically, I guess, the first to go to college to start. And once I started, my younger brother, who's only 3 years younger than me, he started taking classes, and then my mom started taking classes. So that was great, and I'll do everything I can to help them get through it as well.
How about your grandmom?
Oh yeah, my grandma, she has a lot of health issues, and she has an apartment, and she lives with my other aunt, who also has some issues with alcohol and drug use. But my aunt likes to try to help take care of her, and so she's there with her most of the time. But between me and my other cousin, we go there and we grocery shop for her, just spend time and talk to her. If anything happens, we take her to the hospital, doctor's appointments, make sure she's taking her medicine, all of that. Yeah.
I want to make another side note. Again, dibs by Jodi and Alex on who gets to hire this extraordinary young human.
Mhm.
But to the world out there, like, hire a freaking caregiver.
Right.
You want to talk about somebody who can get stuff done and
Right.
multitask and juggle? That's you. And you're doing it with this extraordinary vibrancy and vitality. Like, you just exude joy. You're such a pleasure to pay attention to. At Archangels, we would say we use the term high caregiver intensity. There's a lot of intensity in the roles that you're playing around being a caregiver. And that's not always great for your emotional health. I don't think this is necessarily true for you, but I want to share some stats on loneliness and anxiety. 57% of caregivers overall, and this is post-COVID, are experiencing clinically significant levels of stress, anxiety, and/or depression. And that actually climbs to 92% when you're considering high intensity caregivers. That's across all generations. But millennial caregivers report COVID-19 related loneliness or isolation at high rates, 56%. But Gen Z, we didn't share this with you before, Xavier, this is interesting. Archangels just got this data. But Gen Z caregivers are feeling this even more, with 69% reporting loneliness or isolation due to the pandemic. And I just have this feeling in your soul of you exude such presence and such like coping mechanisms. Do you get tired? And when you do you get lonely? What fills you back up?
Yeah, so I get really tired sometimes, and I just feel like I don't know, I need a chance to like just breathe. And usually what fills me up is just spending time with people, but like time where it's, I don't know, I don't have to like help in any sort of way. I can just enjoy the time. And so usually going disc golfing with my friends, or just watching some TV with people. And then also like just driving in my car by myself and listening to music and singing along to it. So I get that a lot when I'm driving from one spot to another. And yeah, that's pretty much, I think my only alone time is when I'm driving in my car.
That's my personal favorite thing to do too. And to sing, although I can't sing. You also mentioned going for a walk, that you love going for a walk. And you gave this hysterical story, you have to share it, about how you called your brother and you're like, I just want to go for a walk, will you go for a walk with me? And do you remember this story and what he said?
Sort of, yeah. Let me think.
That I can't go for a walk and I need you to help me with my.
Yeah. So yeah, I asked him to go for a walk, but yeah, he brought up that I still have to help him with his taxes. Yep.
So here's Xavier, like, God, I really could use a rest. I think I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to call my brother. He's like, yeah, nope. And by the way, you got more caregiving to do. Take care of my taxes, which I love. So there's this other data that we're getting back that talks really about the protective effect. It's so important to have purpose, and obviously being a caregiver fills you with a lot of purpose. There's also things about being a caregiver that are very positive, that create actually protective benefit to your health. And our data is saying some of those are connecting with community, with family, with faith, with other caregivers. Just as an example of 4 of them. One of the things we talk about a lot of this is this notion of look, love, lift. Wherever you are, look around you, because there are caregivers everywhere and they don't look like what you would expect necessarily. And you need to take a moment to love on them and recognize the love that they're giving and say, thank you so much for what you're doing. I see you. And then you give them a lift. And a lift can be something as straightforward as filling groceries in a refrigerator, as just saying, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I see you. Connecting them with other folks like them. Do you get a lift? There's a statement I love where we always say, and if you give a lift, you actually get a lift, right? Give a lift, get a lift. Can you give us some examples of when you get lifts? What do those come from? What lifts you?
So for me, I guess I see lifts as like just knowing that I have support ready for me if I need it. And Katia is an example of that. I haven't actually now I have, but in our last conversation, I hadn't actually like really asked for help on anything, but I just know that she's there and there's some comfort in that. But yeah, no, like recently, a friend came forward to me about a drug addiction and he wants some help. And so I was able to reach out to Katia rather than have to do all the research on my own. And there was a lot of support there from her. And so I got kind of a lift knowing that she was there to support me.
Well, and you mentioned also in our last call that you feel so good, and I'm sure you did again, when you are able to be there for someone the way that you are.
Yeah.
And Katia, one of the things that you talked about a lot is how on so many occasions, Xavier is really the caregiver, not just to this extraordinary list we just heard of these beautiful family members he's supporting, the broader community around his family as well, but also to students. So can you, and you also shared how in some ways he is to you. He's the only one who ever asks you, how are you doing, Katia?
Yep. That's right.
Do you see him get tired? What do you see lift him up? Can you talk a little about the role you see him playing and how that impacts?
I think that he's kind of like the epicenter of the students and his, not just his like cohort, like his advisor group, but that whole graduating class. And so it's interesting because there's a space on the St. Thomas campus where Xavier goes to school, where our alumni kind of gather, and it's like right in the center of the student center. So you walk in and you can see like a group of DFC alum, and usually it's when Xavier is there, there's like a large group of students there. Otherwise, there's like one or two, maybe, if any. So I think people just kind of gravitate towards Xavier. I think they feel comforted just by his presence. As I've mentioned before, he's always extremely positive. Even when I'm worried that he is getting drained or tired, he stays just like happy and upbeat and optimistic. So I think people feel comforted by him. I think he's very, like, they feel included by him and like they can be themselves around him, which for a 22-year-old is really hard to find. So I think he serves the role of like emotional support and also just like making people feel comfortable and like they're in a space that's safe, whereas sometimes they don't feel like that necessarily in other spaces.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting if we go through the list of all the different ways that Xavier is helping out. We talked about financial, taxes. You're talking about the emotional component. Xavier, one of the things that is so beautiful about the group of people who will be watching this with us is that they are in the position to help. They're in a position to say, wow, I had no idea even Gen Zers are going through this. And oh my gosh, like that it could be this much and it could be touching these different areas. It's obviously natural to you. You don't think of it as you being a caregiver or you doing anything special. And we asked you in one of our prep calls, what could this group do to help you? And you were like, I don't know. I mean, I just do what I do. I don't think about it. And then we prompted you a little bit. Have you had time to think about that more? Do you have some ideas of what could a room full of resources do to support the role that you're playing, in particular for your family, that we could then by extension say, okay, if they could help you, they could be helping so many other folks as well?
Sort of. Yeah, I guess I could get some help with like my grandma, just having or just knowing that someone's there with her will relieve a lot of stress. Someone other than my aunt currently, but also with like childcare.
Well, I want to stay in your aunt and your grandmom for a second. So things like groceries.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
And you talked about your aunt maybe needing a surgery.
Yeah. She had some issues with alcohol intake, and I think it was her pancreas that she may need surgery on, but we decided against it due to, I don't think she has insurance currently. But
so insurance questions.
Yep. And then also like rehabilitation for drug and alcohol. Yeah, that's mostly what would help out in that situation. And then like childcare with my little cousin or little siblings. Tutoring for my mom, although the program that she is in right now when it's not COVID is really great, so that's there. But yeah, and then I don't know, just financial support whenever that's needed as well, or just knowing that it might be something that we can have, like kind of like me knowing that Katia is there to support me when I need her, just knowing that there might be some sort of support would relieve a lot of stress.
Xavier, one of the things that Jodi and I are going to come back to you about separately is this idea of how do we start getting the value of what you're doing in these informal caregiver roles recognized and paid for as well. Because the amount of money you're saving the system, the amount of value you're bringing to the system is immeasurable in so many ways. Katia, what are some ideas you have of ways that that you could be supported, but also Xavier could be supported in these multiple roles you're both playing as caregivers?
I just think that like the resources for students are really hard to find. We have a lot of students, even our students who are on a full scholarship like Xavier, still have to somehow scramble to come up with their book fees, their lab fees, food, which can be really expensive, transportation and bus cards, any of that stuff. The cost of books can, depending on their major, it can really put kids under who are supposed to be full scholarship, or they're living in situations that aren't ideal for studying and for like focusing on school. Like Xavier lives with his uncle who has children and it's a full house and he can't always focus on school, which is probably part of the reason why he gets stuff done, because he needs to be there because it's closer to school and it saves him time, but it's not, I mean, it's not ideal. Now he's going to move into another caregiver role and he's going to take care of students as a resident advisor and put more on his plate in order to make living on campus reasonable. That's a lot to ask. And especially like for our undocumented students, navigating resources for food and finances are really challenging as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like the biggest challenges that I think students face. I think that like finding support for family members, whether it's like SNAP or just helping them like figure out how to do paperwork for or their FAFSAs or any of those, not just for the students, but for their families, is a really big drain on the students. And it's something that like a lot of other students don't have to think about. And a lot of our students have to focus on their families before they can focus on themselves.
Yeah. Jodi, I'm going to pass it back to you to wrap it up. I just want to say one quick thing, which is I think what a theme across both of you is this notion of a navigator. So somebody who could, because the needs change, but there is a consistency around if someone had a knowledge of where resources were and how to help navigate somebody to it, that would save a ton of time. Because then you don't have to do that. You could be passing that off to the navigator. So I'm in love with both of you, as you know. So I'm going to pass it back off to Jodi, who's going to try and be more professional in her wrap up.
No, I don't know that I'll be more professional, but I am absolutely going to be filled with gratitude equal to Alex in that, you know, DFC and the opportunity to serve on the advisory board gave me an opportunity to hear firsthand the work that Katia leads across the entire class of students that are involved. And Xavier was highlighted in our advisory board meeting as a young man that represents our future and the impact. And so I could not be any more proud to have your voices represented to this group, to have our study network get an opportunity to understand that the expansion of Caregiver, even for them, Xavier, will have their minds expanded, that this isn't just an issue for any one segment of a demographic. And you and I had kind of a funny commentary about, you know, the sandwich generation, or you think about an older person that's a caregiver, but to all of a sudden have that expansion of definition is wildly important. And I think, Katia, you know, the world would be a better place if we had persistence counselors across the ecosystem broadly, not only in healthcare, but just in life, for those that are resources. So I'm eager that once we're done with this video to get an opportunity for our group to get access to you as well. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to hear us too. It means a lot to have someone try to understand.